The 6 Pillars of Sovereign Relating. This is Sharon Marie Scott. To be in relationship is to be on a spiritual journey, which means we're meant to both be triggered and, more importantly, to heal and expand in relationship. Sovereign relating isn't a prescribed relationship formula. It is a conscious and intentional, ever-evolving journey of sovereignty, self-love, and co-creation. And it isn't for the faint of heart, because it means challenging everything you've ever been conditioned to believe about relationships. This is a next-level conversation on relating. First, I want to define a couple of key terms, so when you hear them, you'll receive them with the meaning I intend. And the first term is in relationship. To be in relationship is to be in connection with one or more other persons. Sovereign relating transcends all relationship configurations: romantic, sexual, non-romantic, non-sexual, casual, formal, familial. If you really want to dive deep into this topic with me, the principles of sovereign relating will even apply to your relationship to your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. So, in relationship, to be super clear, is meant to refer to any kind of relationship or connection. The next term I want to define is connection. Again, connection isn't specifically meant to refer to a romantic or sexual partner, but simply refers to the other person or people you're in relationship with. So, where do we start? I feel like I can't talk about sovereign relating without first talking about codependent relating, because as a society, we are conditioned to be codependent in relationship. So what is codependence in relationship? My definition of codependence in relationship is an unhealthy reliance on or expectation of another person. This unhealthy component can be physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, or any combination. Codependence is an expression of inequitable power that explicitly or implicitly asks one person to be responsible for some aspect of the other person's feelings or experience, and often requires that person to ignore or abandon parts of themselves in order to maintain connection. The origin of this codependent conditioning is often linked to the early relationships we had with caretakers, parental figures, or guardians who were poor models of holding or processing uncomfortable emotions, who forced us into the role of confidant or surrogate partner when we were just children, who had mental health struggles, who were emotionally or physically abusive, or who ignored or neglected us because they weren't capable of anything more. And this is just a handful of examples. Because of the influence of these early dysfunctional environments, many people growing up learned to shut down emotionally, to people please, to soothe or fix other people's feelings, or to be perfectionists. If these behaviors are never addressed, they can lead to lifelong struggles with rejection, abandonment, and self-worth, and can contribute to mental health struggles like anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, and even systemic issues like autoimmune disorder. And the reason these struggles are so pervasive is because we're doing most of this unconsciously. If you recognize any of these behaviors in your own life, the first thing I want you to do is to let go of any judgment of yourself. These kinds of coping mechanisms are totally understandable because as infants, we weren't capable of taking care of ourselves on our own. Threats of rejection, violence, and abandonment in our early family environments, whether explicit or implicit, force us to adapt to the requirements of the early family unit as a means of survival. And this ability to adapt, especially at such a young age, is not only understandable, but it's pretty fucking badass. The challenges come later when those same survival mechanisms that were necessary in our early lives become unhealthy, self-sabotaging, and limiting in our adulthood. Codependence is so prevalent in our relational social structures that we think of it not only as acceptable, but as expected in relationship. So what is sovereign relating? Sovereign relating is a healthy, co-nurtured relationship with others. It's a relational expression of equitable power that celebrates each person exactly as they are in each moment, without trying to change them, and where each person is accountable for their own happiness. A sovereign relationship is one where each person involved is consciously aware that they are always in choice, even when circumstances make it feel otherwise, and doesn't require anyone to hide or abandon parts of themselves in order to maintain connection. People in a sovereign relationship feel committed to a sense of intention, and that intention is for individual and collective growth. Sovereign relating requires a conscious understanding that as you open more deeply in relationship, meaning the more trusting and vulnerable you allow yourself to become, you understand that you will be triggered, and that those triggers have the purpose of alerting you to echoes of past wounding still being held in the cellular memory that you have the opportunity to release. What's so powerful about sovereign relating is that there is a synergistic effect where the individuals in relationship have an opportunity to expand more in relationship than they could alone. So what are the 6 foundational pillars of sovereign relating? Pillar number 1 is relationships are a conduit for healing. I mentioned at the beginning that to be in relationship is to be on a spiritual journey. It's my lived experience that relating itself is a spiritual practice. It exposes us to expanded levels of consciousness like love, joy, and ecstasy, which elicits one kind of healing, and also triggers our shadows, aspects of the self that have been separated from us that are looking to be reintegrated. This means that every moment of discomfort in a sovereign relationship is an opportunity to expand in consciousness. This is the journey of sovereign relating. Pillar number 2, you are already whole. We all have wounding or emotionally overwhelming experiences from the early parts of our lives, as well as inheritances from our ancestral lineage and past lives. And for so many of us, that early wounding creates a subconscious belief that we are not enough, or it makes us feel broken in some way. This is really powerful programming. Brené Brown says, we all have a primal need for connection and belonging, and I believe that's true. But a relationship doesn't and shouldn't complete you. Our wholeness is a divine truth, a constant. But the unexpected pain from these early overwhelming experiences convinces us that wholeness is measured by how others feel about us, instead of recognizing our inherent completeness from within. So whether you're aware of your wounding or not, whether you are in relationship or not, no matter where you are in your sovereign journey, you are and always have been whole and complete, exactly as you are. Pillar number 3, honor the individuals in the relationship above the relationship. In a sovereign relationship, each individual's authentic identity and sovereignty are held higher than the fear of change or the fear of losing the relationship. This doesn't mean you don't care what happens to the relationship. It means that you don't allow childhood fantasies or your past pain to control or limit others. This idea can be super scary in practice because it goes against that codependent programming that tells us that others are supposed to meet our needs or that they're supposed to be what we want them to be so we feel safe and happy. And on the flip side, our past pain can encourage us to play small in order to please or at least not trigger other people. And because all of this is unconscious, we're often surprised later when we discover that we've somehow lost our identities in a relationship. Our codependent conditioning even tries to convince us that the other person is the problem, instead of recognizing our circumstances as a cage we built for ourselves. The people in our lives aren't villains or bad people because they want something different than us. But this early codependent programming sets us up to think we have to push or pull people into alignment with us instead of finding people who are already attuned to us. Growth can feel really scary because it takes us into the unknown, but a person in a sovereign relationship understands that everyone is on a journey of growth and expansion, and they continue to honor that person and that journey, even at the risk of outgrowing the relationship. Pillar number 4, be radically transparent with yourself and with your connections. In a sovereign relationship, there is room to feel anything and to express those feelings without having to fix or do something about them. It's vulnerable to be authentic about who you are and what you want, and to stay in compassionate presence while the people we're in connection with do the same. But it's exactly this transparency that leads to feeling seen, heard, and truly understood, feeding a feeling of aliveness to each person from the inside out, which directly translates to more aliveness being reflected in relationship. It's not always easy to hear other people's truths about how they truly feel about themselves or about us, but in a sovereign relationship, a person is willing to experience being triggered if it means the people they're in connection with feel fully expressed. Pillar number 5, own your shit. Owning your shit really goes hand in hand with radical transparency. It's about each person being accountable for their own internal experience. Most people still believe that relationships should only feel good, and that when bad feelings surface, something's gone terribly wrong. Most people believe their feelings are something they can't control, or that they're caused by their partner's words or actions. But owning your shit means you understand that any discomfort you experience is the echo of past experiences and the beliefs you're holding on to as a result of those experiences. And as I mentioned, we all have echoes of past pain. And just by being in a relationship, that wounding will inevitably be triggered. It's my lived experience that the deeper and more vulnerable the connection becomes with the person, the deeper the wounding that will show up. When you understand this, you understand that there will be times when you feel abandoned, trapped, rejected, overlooked. The people in our life are not responsible for those feelings or for healing our wounds. They can absolutely be of support to us as we seek out healing for ourselves, but the job of healing or wellness is ours alone. And the 6th and last pillar is embody sovereignty as a practice. Sovereignty in the context of sovereign relating is a practice of embodied awareness, accountability, and leadership, of mindful presence, self-compassion, and appreciation. To embody sovereignty as a practice means to consciously strip away the controls we have consciously or unconsciously established that give us power over anyone or anything, as well as to consciously take back any power we have given away to anyone or anything. This intentional shift to embody the source of our own empowerment compels us to turn toward ourselves first for happiness, to erect and maintain healthy boundaries, to honor the agency of all parties, and to invite the release of any echoes of past pain that the cellular memory is still holding on to. It feels important to point out that sovereign relating is not emotional libertarianism. It's not about never needing anyone or about hyper-independence. Hyper-independence, in fact, just like codependence, is a trauma response. To be radically sovereign is to own that we are the creators of our reality. And because of that, we are the only ones accountable for the thoughts, feelings, and beliefs we allow into our awareness. That it is no one else's job to heal our wounds or to make up for our painful past except ours. And here's the really challenging one, that we are not owed anything because we are not a victim except of our own minds. Where the first pillar, relationships are a conduit for healing, is the journey of sovereign relating, you can think of this pillar, embodying sovereignty as a practice, as the cobblestones that forge the path. This podcast series will spend most of its time focused on this 6th pillar. Each episode will crack open a different piece of our social conditioning, and will also share tools, tips, and embodied methods for embodying sovereignty as a loving practice. It's vital to remember that as we walk the journey of sovereign relating, what we're doing is developing a deeper relationship with ourselves. That's why it's a spiritual journey. And when we consciously embody this journey of self-love, rather than grasping at relationships from a place of emptiness or searching for other people to fill our cup, we're sharing the overflow of a cup that is already full from the inside out. Until next time, in sovereignty.